This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
He is. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing great.
You're in Dolphins camp today?
I am at Florida Panthers practice, actually.
Oh,
doing
that's right.
some moonlighting, some hockey moonlighting right now.
Some NHL.com moonlighting. Is that what you're doing?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. So let me ask you before I get into the Dolphins. Sorry, Dolphin fans. I'm going to piss you off a second. I'm going to talk a little okie. Should I be just a little bit concerned that neither one of my goaltenders is on his head right now? Because I this whole story of we got two goaltenders. It's good. Everybody would love to have two goaltenders. Yeah, no, I'd like to have one really hot freaking goaltender. And that's what makes me feel good going into the playoffs. So, Mr. Canadian, am I being a hoser?
No. It's, you know what they say about quarterbacks? You have two quarterbacks. You have no quarterbacks. Does the same thing apply for goalies? No. Here's the thing, though. More often than not, it's you run into these series where the goalie will make a complete difference. That doesn't happen all that much or as frequently as
96.
Some people make it out to be.
96.
96. But also the Panthers were really tight defensively as well. Like last year, for example, the Panthers got beat by Tampa Bay in 6 games, and the narrative that was thrown out there quite a bit was that Vasilevsky won the series. Well, I beg to differ. To me, the big difference in the series was that Tampa Bay was much more physical in the dirty areas, and their forwards were camping in front of Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight the entire series, whereas the Panther forwards were getting cleared out by those huge D-men of the Lightning. So the idea that either Bob is going to steal the series or Varlamov's going to steal the series for Washington, not convinced it's going to come down to that. To me, again, if I have one concern with the Panthers heading into the series, as much as goaltending, is are they still physical enough for the Stanley Cup playoffs, which is an entirely different game than the regular season for anybody who's going to jump out at me and go, well, they were the number 1 seed. They had this great regular season. Yes, they did. But it's a different game in the playoffs.
You're right. You're 1,000% right on that. I just would feel a little better if we had the one guy clearly ahead of the other guy, and that's what we don't have, and that still makes me very, very nervous. But you're right; they're going to have to be incredibly physical because they allow them to play when the playoffs start, dude. There's no doubt about that, and they start tomorrow. So there you go, good stuff. All right. So what'd you think of the draft? I mean, I know it's an abbreviated one. There's only a couple of picks, but what did you like about it?
Well, yeah, because if you're talking the draft, you have to include Tyreek Hill and you have to include Jalen Waddle because the number 15 pick, they would have had it had they not made the trade with the Eagles last year. And I'm still going to say that I wasn't crazy about that second trade, that the going down from 3 to 12 was brilliant. From where I sat, that going then from 12 to 6, I didn't like at all. Because if you look at the guys who were picked 12th and 13th, it was Micah Parsons and Rashawn Slater. So you could have had Jalen Waddle, or you could have had Micah Parsons and Rashawn Slater, one of those two, plus the 15th pick this year. And I'm sorry, there's not a Dolphins fan who can tell me with a straight face that they would take Waddle over the other package. Now, having said that, the Tyreek Hill, we're going to see how it plays out, but they gave up a lot to get him. With the idea is going to be complete difference maker for the offense. So you start off with having only 4 picks, which, by the way, is the fewest ever in Dolphin history. There's only so much you can do. I like the pick of Channing Tindall a lot because he brings an element that was missing from the linebacker core outside of Jerome Baker, that they were lacking speed. He's going to give you that. At the very least, he's going to play a lot of special teams early on, and you can put him on the field in a package on defense alongside Baker. So I like that pick a lot. Didn't really get the Eric, and I'm going to butcher up Eric E. Pick in the 4th round. And then your 2 7th rounders, at that point, you're basically taking shots and seeing what you can get. So, I mean, it wasn't a really exciting weekend, but we knew it wasn't going to be because they just didn't have the draft ammunition.
Overall, when anything on the undrafted free agents that they signed?
No, they got a couple of very interesting guys like Verone McKinley III, who is one of Javon Holland's good friends and played with him at Oregon, who I wrote about when I went to the combine, spoke to him about Javon Holland, and he just doesn't rate as a great athlete, except he made a ton of plays. And McKinley is one of those guys like Javon Holland, who was always around the ball and made a lot of plays. Now, whether that can translate to the NFL, that's a question. Obviously, he certainly wasn't expected to be an undrafted free agent. He was expected to go fourth round was his neighborhood. Kellen Diesch, the tackle from Arizona State, another guy who was expected to go in that fourth round neighborhood. And you look at him on film, and you see him pulling from the left tackle spot at Arizona State, and he certainly looks the part of what you would want for a Mike McDaniel offensive lineman. So those are two guys who were very interesting to jump out among the large group of undrafted free agents. We got 14 now confirmed, like either through the school or their agencies or the players themselves. Yeah, no, don't ask me to do a deep dive on the cornerback from Texas A&M Commerce, other than I believe he ran like a 4.55 at his pro day.
I didn't even know there was a Texas A&M Commerce, bro. I
got you beat. I knew that. I got you beat. I knew about that school.
I had no idea. I was going Texas A&M Commerce. Did somebody sneak in Commerce accidentally, and this kid plays for Texas A&M? And it's like Texas A&M Commerce. Like, what the hell is that, dude?
Yeah,
like, wow.
Not a Power 5 conference.
No.
Yeah.
What'd you think of the quarterback selection? At first, I was like, what the hell are they doing? But then when I started to think about it, well, Teddy's only here for a year. So, because he's probably going to want to try to compete somewhere else for a starting job or something if he doesn't do anything here, right? So you're only going to probably have him around for a year. You do need to develop a backup. So I kind of understand the method behind the madness, and he's an athlete, so you might be able to do a little something with him.
Yeah, and it makes you believe that for a change of the offense, they're going to keep three quarterbacks on the roster, or they're going to try to sneak him through waivers and get him back on the practice squad. Look, we get to the 7th round, and I've mentioned this before. You're looking for something unique, a unique trait, because if you're looking for a guy, generally speaking, just a solid football player, he's a 7th round pick for a reason. And this guy, I mean, looking at some of his tape, I get a little Jimmy Garoppolo little vibe when I look at him. Nothing overly special about the way he throws the arms, nothing special, but he's got spunk, for lack of a better term, and he's mobile and he's feisty. It's also funny that he's actually older than the team's starting quarterback. He's going to turn 25 in June, and Tua just turned 24. So that's an interesting dynamic. But again, obviously, Mike McDaniel, Chris Greer, and the scouts see something in him that they feel they can work with. So taking a shot at quarterback in the 7th round, I have no issue with that. They did with Brandon Doughty in 2016, the guy put up crazy numbers at Western Kentucky. Oh, let's take a shot to see if his skill set can translate to the NFL. Well, it didn't, but it's a 7th round pick. Does anybody really bemoan the loss of that 7th round pick in 2016?
Well, and the Doughty thing, like this kid, what I'm being told is his potential is for backup quarterback. And that was the Doughty thing too, by the way. It wasn't like they weren't looking at Doughty to be the starter. They do try to groom backups too, by the way, just so you folks don't know out there. They actually try to do that in the NFL still, because the backup quarterback is still somewhat, he's not good enough to be a starter, but he might be good enough to keep the ship afloat for, a week or two. And so that's kind of what you're trying to find. So I don't have a problem trying to find a guy that maybe could be a backup for you down the line. Makes sense.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to that theory, because look around the NFL and you go back the last couple of years, most teams carry 2 quarterbacks, and that second guy's always a veteran. And he becomes a veteran because he's played in games. So the idea that you're going to groom him on the practice squad or in practice.
Well, that's where they do it. That's where they do it early on. They try to do it on the practice squad the first year or two, where they can stash him. And then eventually, if they can, bring him up as the number 2 guy.
Yeah, but then you got to get the game experience. I think, to me, it's more of they see something that maybe can click and that they can work with and make him become. I don't think that you pick a 7th round you pick a quarterback in the 7th round, thinking his ceiling is strictly as a backup. I think you think that very possibly might not pan out, but there's something there that maybe everything falls together and you get yourself a quarterback at some point.
Yeah, I think it's, for me, I still think it's kind of backup, because since it's such a long season, you're trying, because sometimes you're going to need more than 2 guys. So maybe that's a guy that you might have to lean on down the line, and you're trying to groom him, and that, because you usually can't hide a veteran there on that practice squad anymore.
No.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what becomes a problem. So you have a young guy that you try to hide there for a little bit. By the way, did Reed Sinnott make it back onto the Philadelphia team after he got picked up?
I believe he's on their roster. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'll have to double check, but my recollection is he's with them.
I actually liked him, man. I liked what I saw from him as a backup. Actually, overall, I thought he was all right. Anything else catch your eye from this weekend outside of the Jets doing a really good job? Unfortunately.
Yeah, they're going to be a problem sooner rather than later. This may be crazy and probably is, but if you're looking for a team that could make a big jump in 1 year overnight, I'd look to the Jets. I think because they had some good pieces before that.
Do you believe in Zach Wilson? That's the problem, because I don't.
I think he's going to become a good quarterback. And if you notice, he was a lot better down to the last month of the season than he was. He had a really bad stretch. Then he went out, and when he came back, cut down on the bad decisions and the interceptions. And there's tools there. So I
know there's tools. It just, he looks still too raw to me. Still looks like if he's still a couple of years away of making some more mistakes until maybe the light goes on, if it's going to go on. But I don't see it this year turning on. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see.
He looked to me like a guy who tried to be a hero on every play, even though there's some plays that's completely not there. And I think that's fixable. And it's again, to me, I kind of saw the same things as I saw with Josh Allen. There's something there. And I do think he's gonna take a big step. And that team's got picked up some pieces all over the place. I think they could be problematic. The Dolphins, they beat them by 7 points each game, but then it didn't really feel like the Jets were a major threat either game. And then the previous year, the Dolphins smoked them. So let's say that's 4 games where you went into the game against the Jets thinking, yeah, it's not a problem. But I think the 2 games this year, the Dolphins actually are going to have to play good games to beat the Jets.
All right. They had a chance to draft a couple of centers in that 7th round, and they chose not to. And they passed on some centers in the 4th, and they passed some centers in the 7th that still were there. But they did bring on a couple of guys, and one that has played center in Clary from Arkansas. Now, I was trying to explain this to people. Just because they didn't get any linemen in the 7th round doesn't mean that the guys that they just signed now aren't as good as those 7th rounders, because undrafted free agents and 6th and 7th rounders, there's really not much of a difference there overall. But I thought you had, I think it was you that said it over the weekend, that you had you got to remember that Dieter wasn't terrible at any time during the year. That Austin Jackson, it was you, right? Yeah, that Eichenberg and Jackson had terrible moments and terrible stretches. At no point was Dieter and Hunt ever terrible. They had maybe a couple of mistakes, but they were never terrible in a real glaring weakness like Jesse Davis was, like Eichenberg was, like Austin Jackson was. So is that why you think they weren't that aggressive?
Of course. I think they think a lot more highly of Michael Dieter than a lot of fans do, and some media members do. And even to this point, I'm seeing the Dolphins, they fail to address their offensive line. I don't know that the Dolphins see their offensive line as much of a crying need as a lot of people do, and Dieter is part of that. And to me, Dieter was fine when he played last year. I didn't have a major issue. What I saw from him as a rookie in 2019, if we're talking about offensive lines, everybody's dumping on last year. Well, the 2019 offensive line was terrible too. And Dieter played guard, and he certainly looked like a guy who wasn't strong enough. Well, that was 2 years ago. And this is a guy who was a very good player at Wisconsin. So I think there's something to work with there. And we really expect, just because maybe it's a name in college at a 7th-round pick, or UDFA is going to come in and automatically he's better than Dieter. I don't think so. So to me, it's going to be Dieter, or they go in free agency and in the second wave and see if somebody's out there, and maybe they make a run on JC Treader, even though I'm not sure that's going to happen. But that's one possibility. I don't see a young player being the choice over Michael Dieter at this point.
So what is it with Treader? Money, knees? Well, what the hell is going on, dude? Because he's a little better. He's a little better player than you would expect to be available in this second wave, actually. So it's just kind of odd that, you know.
No, I think a combination of the fact that, from what I understand, he didn't practice last year, basically showed up in games because he's got knee issues. Are those chronic and potentially more problematic, moving forward? Does he want too much money? All of those could be factors. I mean, we saw like Tyrann Mathieu didn't sign until today, and Tyrann Mathieu is a hell of a player. So
yeah.
And there's also a lot of big names still left out there. So, certain things will happen in time. I would suspect that Treader is going to sign with somebody at some point. And who knows? Maybe it's the Dolphins.
$20 million still under the cap, so they've got a lot of flexibility. All right, what are you working on Sports Illustrated so folks can check you out?
Well, today I think the main focus is going to be I called out for questions for a mailbag and got a ton of them, so we're gonna dive into those. I haven't written a column with my overall thoughts on what the Dolphins did in the draft. I'm not a big fan of giving out draft grades, even though it's weird because some people bitch about them. It's like, well, you can't judge a draft until 3 years on the roll. Yeah, no shit, but. We still have a right to express how we feel.
But I mean, to give a grade to this draft, to give a grade, oh my God, it's just, dude. But you have to, if third and fourth and 2 7th-rounders. It's really hard to give a grade for. I give it an A just because you got me my linebacker. That's it, dude. Whatever Eric or the other 2 7th-rounders do, in my eyes, this is like an icing on the cake. If the linebacker works out, this becomes a hell of a draft already as it is. I know we got to include Tyreek Hill and all that other crap, but I'm just saying, as of the 4 draft picks, if the linebacker hits, that's all I care about, dude. If Eric becomes a player, then that becomes a monster bonus. You hit out of 2 of the 4? Are you kidding me? That's awesome. And they're 3rd and 4th rounders?
Correct. To me, I go like value. What's the player going to become? Could there have been a different position that maybe would have been addressed? Like, I go back to Eric. I didn't see a screaming need for a wide receiver, and he wasn't necessarily a guy. It wasn't like great value. It wasn't like a first rounder. It wasn't like grabbing Nakobe Dean, even if you had a good linebacker.
Right.
So that one was a little weird to me. The Channing Tindall move I loved. And then the 2 7th-rounders, you're taking a shot, and if either one pans out, it's a major bonus.
Yep, I'm with you there. All Dolphins at Sports Illustrated. Make sure you follow it there. Bookmark that baby, and you'll get all of his articles, and follow him on Twitter. You see it right there at Poupart NFL for those of you listening on the podcast. Alain, as always, thank you, my friend. We'll catch up later in the week.
You got it. Sounds good, Big O.
You got it. There you go. Le Expose. That's our Sports Grill Miami Dolphins Insider Report.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.